So we're here today to talk about one of the recent officer-involved shootings involving APD officers. This is the one last month over on MENAUL Boulevard. We have two others that we will be doing maybe next week. We have to schedule those out, including the one I want to blow. So we'll let you know as soon as those are ready to go. But I'll turn it over to Chief Medina.
I just want to thank everybody for being here this afternoon as we update the community on officer-involved shooting that occurred on August 15th of 2021. I think it's important that once again, I'm going to just really emphasize and point out that we had a property crimes offender, somebody involved in a stolen motor vehicle who possessed a firearm. And in reality, it's what we've been talking about for quite some time. Individuals who arm themselves during the commission of a property crime are an apprehension away from being a danger, violent criminal to the community. These were officers that confronted this individual, but too many times we also see that citizens confront these individuals and are endangered, and the firearm becomes a means for them to escape apprehension. We'll be giving a full briefing on this, and I'm going to be turning it over to Deputy Commander Kyle HARTSOCK, and we'll take questions afterwards. So thank you.
Hi there, my name is Deputy Commander Kyle HARTSOCK of the Criminal Investigations Division, which includes the Multi-Agency Task Force, or METF. They're the ones that are still conducting this criminal investigation. This critical incident community briefing will provide you with information of a person who was wanted in an auto theft investigation, who produced a gun during a foot pursuit, which ended with an officer-involved shooting. You're about to see relevant video footage and learn about other evidence and police procedures related to the case so you can have a better understanding of what occurred based on what we know right now. The Albuquerque Police Department conducts very thorough criminal and use of force investigations, which typically require multiple witness interviews, reviewed hours of video footage, surveillance, and analyze a significant amount of forensic evidence. We're still at the early stages of this investigation, which can often take several months to complete. Our understanding of this incident may change as additional evidence is collected, analyzed, and reviewed. We also do not draw any conclusions today about whether the officers acted consistent with our policies and the law until all the facts are known and the investigation is complete. A word of caution: the images and video may be disturbing. When police officers use force to arrest a subject or defend against an attack, it can be graphic and difficult to watch. In addition, there may be strong language shown by those in the video. This incident we're here to talk about took place, initiated in the Southeast Area Command, and it ended in the Northeast Area Command. And the dividing line on the map you're looking at of this particular case is I-40. On August 15th, 2021, Officer Christopher Mings with our department observed a vehicle at Lomas in Louisiana Northeast. When he ran the license plate, the vehicle returned as being possibly stolen. Officer Mings tried to initiate a traffic stop by turning on his emergency equipment. The vehicle did not stop. Officer Mings' car was had a Star Chase device deployment system on it, which essentially glues a GPS tracker to a vehicle. It was successful in attaching to the stolen car. The stolen car proceeded to then drive away very aggressively away from Officer Mings while he was trying to pull him over. Officer Mings disengaged his emergency equipment, notified dispatch that a Star Chase device had been deployed. Our dispatch center is capable of now viewing the Star Chase GPS information from where they sit, and they started to give out updates on where the GPS tracker was then headed. They advised that near Indian School in Pennsylvania, nearby a park, the tracker had come to a stop, which is fairly close by to where the traffic stop initiated. Officer Mings drove over to that area, and he found that the Star Chase device had actually now been removed from the car by somebody and just dropped somewhere on the street or the sidewalk nearby. Officer Mings updated dispatch and just asked that a broadcast or an attempt to locate be put out for the general description of the car. Being familiar with the area, Officer Mings decided to go by a nearby Walmart parking lot and just kind of go through the parking lot to see if he could see the car there. That Walmart was located near Wyoming and Northeastern Boulevards Northeast. In that parking lot, the officers did find the same stolen car, now unoccupied, in a parking spot. They reviewed surveillance video. They could see a male and a female appear to get out of the car. This matched Officer Ming's description of the occupants of the car when he tried to pull it over, and they began to look for anyone matching that description. Near where the shooting took place in the 9100 block of MENAUL Northeast, a sergeant advised he found 2 persons possibly matching that description and detained those persons on a curb. Officer Ming showed up and continued on with his investigation. They were initially stopped on the curb right here. They spoke with the detained individuals who were identified as Eric Padilla and a female acquaintance of his. As Officer Mings and another officer, Dinnerstein, advised Padilla they're going to do a pat down for weapons, Padilla pulled out a knife and just volunteered it over to the officers. Officer Mings continued to advise Padilla he needed to still pat him down. They also noticed that he had a clip in his pocket that looked like it could be another type of weapon. So they advised, we still need to pat you down. Padilla didn't submit to this. Padilla suddenly just took off running. He crosses MENAUL, starts to turn around and run backwards. And this is where the shooting takes place. And we're going to show you video of that here in a minute. The 2 officers involved in the shooting are Officer Max Dinnerstein. He has been on the department since December of 2014, currently signed to the Southeast Area Command and has no prior officer-involved shootings. The other officer is Christopher Mings. His date of hire was December of 2018 with the Albuquerque Police Department. He's currently signed to the Southeast Area Command as well and also has no prior officer-involved shootings. Mr. Padilla, the person who was shot, was 34 years old at the time and a resident of Albuquerque. We're now going to show you the lapel video from the interview and interaction and the shooting from Officer Ming's on-body recording device.
What's going on, man? So, I just want to let you know all this is being recorded here inside the car policy. Okay. But you're just going to have to stand up and you have to take your hand a little bit, and I'm going to talk to you, okay? Okay. Alright, so you can see your back here, just stand up and go. Don't reach in your pocket. No. I see you have a knife in your pocket. Don't touch it. No, touch it. Don't do that next time. Put your hands on your head. I'm just going to patch you up. Weapons. No, I don't want to. So you have a knife on you. Yeah, man. I don't want to. I had it in the mouth, man. What was that to you? What was that to you? What do you do with that? Do what? So here's the thing. So listen. When we see there's a weapon on you, we do have a knife. Okay. I don't know if that you just slow down. Just talk to me. We have to let you know you're being recorded too. We're just trying to have a conversation. You can't do that. It's illegal. You guys can't do that too. No, we can remove a knife from the seat. I gave it to you. Let's start over. Just talk. Okay, let's start over. Okay. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm curious, okay? Yes, sir. Right now, I'm trying to conduct an investigation. I'll explain everything to you, okay? So I'll explain why we're here and all of that. But first, I need to conduct a pat-down on you. No, you don't need to pat down tonight. There's no reason. Yes, right? Yes, I do. So I'll explain it to you. Sir, I don't have to. I'm just talking to my girlfriend. I'm trying to finish my job. I'm working, man. I have a stop every day. Don't try to be right. Man, I'm trying to get my license back, man. You get in law. All kinds of stuff, man. Please don't fuck with me, man. I'm trying to get good, man. I'll explain everything. Eric, right now I'm giving you a lawful order. Yeah, you follow my directions. You can't do that, man. I'm nothing wrong, man. I'm nothing wrong, sir. Please don't do that. Follow my directions. You're just gonna make it worse for me. I'm doing wrong, man. You can be charged for resisting and obstructing. I know I'm trying to do that, but I ain't nothing wrong, sir. So do you want to be charged? No, sir. I'm listening. Sir. So put your hands on top of your head. Please, sir, don't do that. What did I do wrong? You don't want to use force against Eric, so here's the other thing. You don't go reaching at it, but I see another knife on you. Don't go reaching for it. That's the reason why we're saying, man, put your hands on top of your head right now. Please don't be like that, man. Please don't be like Eric. Good.
We're going to play you the other officer's recording as well, just from the point right before the foot chase starts.
Slow down, we're just talking, man. Okay? That's illegal. You guys can't do that to me. No, we can remove a knife for safety. I give it to you. Let's start over and just talk. Okay, let's start over. Okay. Yes, sir. Just listen to my partner, sir. My name is Chris, okay? Yes, sir. Right now, I'm trying to conduct an investigation. I'll explain everything to you, okay? Listen, I'll explain why we're here and all of that. But first, I need to conduct a pat-down on you. No, you don't need to. I give you the knife. There's no reason. You guys don't have a reason. Yes, I really don't, sir. I'll explain it to you. No reason, sir. There's nothing wrong with talking to my girlfriend. I have to go finish my job. I'm working, man. Working my ass off every day. We're trying to die. Man, I'm trying to get my license back, man. We get in a lot. All kinds of stuff, man. Please don't come fucking with me, man. I'm trying to get good, man. I'll explain everything. Man, you ain't got what's going on, man. Right now, take all my directions. You can't do that, man. I'm about to follow you, man. You can't. I don't know. I'm trying to think from here, man. All my directions. It's going to be charged for resisting obstruction. I don't know that, right? Okay, sir. So do you want to be charged or do you want to listen to our instructions? I'm listening, sir. Okay, so put your hands on top of your head. Please don't do that. What did I do wrong? You don't want to use force against Eric, so here's the other thing. And don't go reaching at it, but I see another knife on you. Don't go reaching for it. That's the reason why we're saying it. Man, fuck, bro. Put your hands on top of your head right now. Please don't be like that, man. Please don't be like that. APD, shots fired. Yeah, are you good? Okay. Okay.
When we slow the video down and take stills from it, this is the original perspective of the camera. We'll zoom in. You can see what looks like a silver handgun has been produced now by Mr. Padilla. This is the part of the lapel approximately when the officer stops engaging in the foot chase and starts to yell out gun. On one of a few frames after, and again I'll zoom in closer, we see this image of him starting to turn with the gun, and again. During the crime scene processing, Mr. Padilla was deceased right there behind the blue square, but his gun was recovered in close proximity. This was the firearm that he was carrying. Inside of it was a spent casing, but still chambered inside. Since then, we found out this gun has been connected to 3 other shootings in Albuquerque this summer that are still under investigation. Investigation has also since revealed that fingerprints taken inside the stolen car at the Walmart have matched Eric Padilla as well, which placed him inside the stolen vehicle that did initially flee from police. There was a female with him, but at this time, she was not charged that day, but that part of the investigation is still ongoing. Again, over the next several months, we're going to continue to investigate and analyze this incident. We'll continue interviewing any new witnesses that come forward and complete any forensic test. After the investigation is complete, our Force Review Board will forward the findings to the Superintendent of Police Reform to determine if this incident met the high standards of the Albuquerque Police Department. The MATF will forward their case to the District Attorney's Office, who will make any determination of criminal charges. And at this point, I can help answer any questions.
You said a spent casing, but the chamber is still inside. What does that mean?
Essentially, it's a malfunction in the firearm that can occur where it doesn't eject the casing after being fired.
So does that mean you fired that gun recently?
It's part of what we're trying to still investigate and understand. But as they unloaded the gun, the casing was in there, which is unusual, but it had been fired.
Does it mean he could not have fired that gun?
He would have had to, in most cases, rack the gun to eject that casing, so a live round could then come in. But we don't know how it got there, essentially. That's what we're still trying to determine.
I have a question. So, we see the officers on foot chasing the suspect on a busy street. Can you kind of explain, dangerous situation for both, the citizens and, the officers? How do we, take precautions for these situations?
I mean, any police action on a busy roadway is dangerous no matter what the police action is, and foot chases are by far no exception. It's likely why he chose to cross the street, is my guess, is to make it harder to pursue him. But beyond what other factors were there that day, I couldn't speak to it. But in general, police action on highways are always dangerous, yes.
The other shootings that that gun was tied to, can you tell us anything else about that? Were they fatal or non-fatal, or?
They're not homicide cases, but beyond that, they're still under investigation, and we're trying to understand better if he was involved in them or what the involvement was. But they're not concluded just yet. But they're not homicide cases.
Do you know where the gun came from? Was it stolen or?
We're working with the ATF, and that's part of what the ATF is going to learn more about the gun. But we don't have the e-trace complete in our hands at this time.
Was the car confirmed stolen?
The car was confirmed stolen.
What was the description of the car? What did it look like?
It was a sedan. I believe it was a Honda sedan.
I noticed in the video, it looks like I forget which officer's camera it was, but it looks like one of them had a taser out, and then he put that away and then pulled out a firearm. What's the policy for that? Because you have the one officer say gun, and then wasn't that a taser, that yellow thing in the video?
Well, the taser is yellow, is what I can definitely tell you, but the level of forces that they were using and what weapons they were deploying is going to be definitely part of what the IAFD investigation is going to be, and it's just not complete now, so I can't give you a real accurate answer, because that's going to be based off officer interviews and other parts of the investigation.
I don't know if this is a question for you, maybe Chief Medina, but are there any, I mean, he was running away when he was shot. Can you talk a little bit about that? Are there any concerns about the fact that he was running away from the officers?
I think that we have to look at this at multiple levels. And you asked the question earlier about the danger of somebody running on a crowded street. We have to remember that that danger isn't only being presented towards the officers running out into traffic, but there's also a danger to the people that are out there and what this individual is going to escalate to in order to try to escape. And a few weeks ago, during the briefing of another officer-involved shooting, we talked about how an individual tried to carjack somebody in order to get away. So there is a danger with an individual who is fleeing officers and is armed and has produced a firearm. And our force investigation into this will determine if the officer's actions were correct or not correct in how they assess the situation and the level of force that was used. So that is something that will come out. But those are just some of the factors that officers have to take into account as an individual is leaving. Is this individual a danger to the community, and are they a danger to the officers and others? So there are several factors that officers take into account in those situations.
Are both the officers back in their original
Yes,
positions?
I believe they're both back to work.
So just to be clear, it's unknown if the suspect fired the weapon, but he did point it at the officers, or did he just pull it out and not point it at the officers?
I mean, at this point, that's what the investigation is still determining, but we can play the video again if you like on that portion. And, part of these briefings is so everyone can kind of just see it and make your own determination.
And I think it's important that we remember that the situation is reviewed in its entirety. We now have an individual who had no firearm in their hand, who is now elected to arm themselves with a firearm, who is still fleeing officers, and who officers still have a legal objective of trying to arrest for committing a felony crime. So I don't want us to get stuck in the mindset that an offender always has to point a firearm at an officer before the officers are in danger, because that really gives a bad concept to the community of expectations.
But we don't think that he fired the gun while he was running.
I think it's unknown. I think it's unknown if he fired the gun or not. And that's something that they'll have to determine.
Sorry, how can that be unknown?
So-
would we have heard it or seen it?
Right, so I can just tell you from just firearms training, not this incident, but if you put an empty casing into a firearm and pull the trigger, it'll click but it won't fire. Those types of things can be hard to determine this early in an investigation, which is why we're still trying to understand that portion of it.
Okay. I have lots of questions about this gun thing, but I don't want to tie up everything. I just don't quite understand how it works, and I'm trying to understand what the significance is of the casing.
The best way to describe it is when somebody fires a gun, the gun automatically pulls the casing out and throws it out. If there's a casing stuck inside the chamber, it doesn't change what a person's going to perceive as they look at the firearm. It's going to change what the person's capable of doing with the firearm, but it's unknown still to officers what the firearm's capabilities are.
Okay, so he could have fired it, but no bullet could have come out because of the.
He could have pulled the trigger.
He could have pulled the trigger, but nothing came out.
Is a better way to say that.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Any other questions? Okay. We'll let you know when we do our schedule the next one.